story of the great law of peace, which exists to this day. But when these people gather together, they only speak of the founder as the peacemaker. Out of respect, they don't use the name of that person. But there are many, many tales throughout the lands in the Haudenosaunee. Some of the tales emphasize one person or another person, different adventures. Some of them seem like to conflict with each other. I'm going to take several of these tales from different places and weave them together into a whole that you can understand, and I'll give some of the names so that you won't get confused. So there are actually three peacemakers that I will tell you about today. The first peacemaker was a man by the name of Daganoweda. He was a Huron, Wyandot, Lookintock from Lake Ontario area. And many tales about him, but I'll only tell you now that he was not honored among his people. He was probably very often or not. And he left due to proxy to go live with the Kanien'kehá:ka, the people of the Flint, whom we call the Mohawks. Now, he will come into the story a little bit later on. The next character I want to introduce to you is a man by the name of Onondaho, an Onondaga. Onondaho, you will find out, was a terrible and evil magician, but he was not always so. In the beginning, he was a kind, gentle, strong, and brave young man. One day when he was hunting, he killed a strange bird that had a poison in it. And this poison got into Onondaho when he began to work the feathers. And it got into his system, into his blood, ate into his brain, and he became insane. He was crazy with wild, fierce, vicious craziness. He would do terrible damage, terrible evil. At the same time, he developed his brain. He developed his brain to the extent that it was so powerful that he could send thoughts at a distance and kill people. And he could tell what was going on all around. So people got a wide berth around him. Now the third peacemaker I want to tell you about is a man by the name of Hiawatha. Now this is not the Hiawatha you've heard about from the Longfellow poem. You see, what Longfellow did was he wrote a poem about a whole different culture, an Algonquian culture, about Manobozho, about the Anishinaabe people. But he didn't like the name of Manobozho. He went and he took this name from the Haudenosaunee people, Hiawatha. He liked the sound of that. So, disassociate yourself from that character for a moment. I'm going to tell you the story of the real Hiawatha. The real Hiawatha was an Onondaga to begin with. And he was a very wise and considerate man who lived apart. And as people came to him with their problems, he always had time to sit and listen, to give them help. More and more their problems they came was this terrible evil magician, Onondaho, who was causing so much trouble. But finally he said, I think we should have a council and decide what to do. We need to put our minds together and figure out what to do about this terrible Onondaho. So the runners went out and people came together for a great council. But of course, after they all came together, there standing among them was the grim figure of Onondaho himself, looking. And the people were thinking, I wonder if he can read my mind. You know, they were terrified. Also, he had paid henchmen who would report to him anything they heard. And this goon squad was walking around looking at everybody, too. So nobody dared to say anything. And the council dispersed. And Hiawatha was very disheartened, I imagine. But Onondaho, I think, must have been made very angry because he sent his thoughts out. And although he probably couldn't hurt Hiawatha with his strength, Hiawatha's sister soon died, and all of his daughters. Hiawatha, in his grief, no one would come to console him. The people must have been afraid of Otadaho and ashamed of their actions, and no one came to him. So he left the Onondaga nation. He went to wander in the wilderness to the east. Many stories of his wandering. I'll just tell you, one night he slept by Bear Mountain. He had a dream. In the dream, a song was being sung. He heard the words of the song which said, "Good news indeed. It is all good. It is good that we speak of peace. Farewell to war. Farewell to its cruel hatchet. Too long have we been insane. From this day we shall be brothers. Farewell to war. Farewell to arms. On this day, the great peace is made. All that we do this day is good." And then he woke, he had a dream, a vision of the great turtle doing the great feather dance. And he said, "Turtle, was that you that sang?" The turtle said, "I sang." The turtle showed him a stalk with 5 ears of corn on it and 4 roots going out in 4 directions. And he said, "This is the symbol of the unity of the 5 nations that must come together under a single law for peace. And the 4 roots going out will tell the world of this unity, that they too may find peace." At the end of his wanderings, he came to the little village where Deganawida lived. And these 2 great men, Hiawatha and Deganawida, met for the first time, and I imagine they had never been able to speak peace to someone who had the same vision of peace. They must have been so excited. They must have stayed up all night long, sharing their visions of peace. And Deganawida said, "I have a vision of a great hole that is dug in the ground. And all the weapons of the world are cast into this hole to be carried away by the waters under the earth. And into that hole we will plant a great tree of peace. The tree of the long leaves, the white pine, will pierce up into the spirit world. And an eagle will sit on top and look out over the peace and call forth when there's any danger. And those 4 white roots will go out from that tree into all 4 directions, so that anywhere in the world, any nation and any person can reach out and find a white root and trace back to the shelter of the tree of peace." Together they devised the law of peace, the great law, that all the nations could come together. And they went to speak to the nations, to the 5 nations that there were at that time. The Mohawk, the Oneida, the Cayuga, the Seneca, and all those 4 nations agreed. Hiawatha did the speaking, for it is said that Deganawida had some impediment in his speech, but Hiawatha was so eloquent, so clear, so simple, so down to earth. He spoke heart to heart, so that the people had tears come to their eyes and say, "Too long we have been insane. We must be brothers and sisters. We must work for this peace. We will join if the other nations will join." Now only remained Onondaga, where lived the terrible Onondaga. Hiawatha and Deganawida came forth from their council and spoke to the people and said, "Now it is time for us to go and confront Onondaga. Not as an enemy, not to kill him or hurt him, but to convert him over to the ways of peace." And I imagine that the people must have all looked at each other and said, "That sounds like a pretty good trick. I'd like to go along and see how they pull that off." Because they all fell in behind the 2 great men as they went through the forest. And they walked along. And Deganawida taught them songs of peace. They began to sing together as they walked. It was the first peace march. The first walk for peace as they went through the forest singing all the different villages along the way.